On this episode of China Uncensored, are the Western media in China all a bunch of wusses? Hi, welcome to China Uncensored. I'm your host, Chris Chappell. We here at China Uncensored are dedicated to reporting accurate, uncensored news about Chinese human rights, politics, and photoshopping. However, in order to ensure that we can continue to deliver this high level of journalism, we must no longer deliver this high level of journalism. To get sensitive news out of China, we must no longer report sensitive news about China. Or else, how can we continue to get sensitive news out of China? The CCP won't let you send journalists to China if they go off and do something unprofessional, like expose corruption. That's why it's important to tell your journalists not to report on those things, or else they won't be given visas to China, and if your journalists can't get visas to China, how can they do stories exposing corruption in China? Fortunately, I've come up with an effective compromise that lets foreign journalists continue to do hard-hitting reports while still ensuring that Chinese authorities won't kick them out of the country. We take all these stories that the CCP doesn't like and download them into a computer. Then we take that computer and put it in a spaceship and launch it into outer space. 10,000 years from now, it returns to Earth and the stories are all downloaded into the brains of Earth's new robot overlords. Or we could just not be wusses and take China to task for its censorship. Like Bloomberg LP, the CEO of Bloomberg is the chairman for a dinner next week honoring journalists who stand up to authoritarian regimes in the face of pressure. Oops, that's the wrong picture. That's the New York Times story about Bloomberg News, which is owned by Bloomberg LP, alleging they killed a report that would have exposed connections between one of China's richest men and top officials because editors were worried it would get them kicked out of China. That's a little awkward. But Bloomberg is denying it. Not just the company, but the man himself. A reporter from New Tang Dynasty asked him about it at a press conference last week.
That Bloomberg did not do that. The editors said that was just not the case. Nobody thinks that we are wusses and not willing to stand up and write stories that are of interest to the public and that are factually correct. And if you could get your facts right, then we'd have another news service that does.
Wow, harsh words. So, just so we can get the facts straight, why did Bloomberg News just fire Michael Forsythe, the award-winning China journalist who was working on the article that wasn't pulled by Bloomberg News? Some are saying it's because he was the one that leaked the story to the Times. The Times must love this because they even ran a story about what New York City Mayor Bloomberg said to that NTD reporter. Now, Bloomberg claims that the story wasn't spiked, that's newsman talk for canceled, it just wasn't finished yet. Sure won't get ready now that they fired the main guy writing it. But let's just stop right here for a moment. This is what the Chinese regime wants. They want Western media to take potshots at each other, because if that happens, the CCP is the winner. In reality, the CCP is the true bad guy here. Not Bloomberg, not the Times, or any other of a half-dozen media entities that have self-censored in order to stay in China. The problem is that if you want access to China, you can't report on sensitive topics. That's why currently Bloomberg News and the New York Times' website are blocked in China because of reports they published last year that examined the financial ties of top Chinese leaders. Paul Mooney, who's been a journalist in China for the past 18 years, has just been denied a visa to go back to China, and authorities made it very clear they weren't happy with his articles. Melissa Chan, who reported on China's black jails, also had her visa rejected last year. Chan worked for Aljazeera English, which had to shut down their bureau in China because she was their only reporter, and the Chinese authorities wouldn't let them bring another one in. And after Bloomberg News ran that story about Chinese leader Xi Jinping's family last year, the one that got its website blocked, Chinese officials also ordered state-run companies to stop buying Bloomberg terminals, which was a financial blow to Bloomberg LP. The Chinese regime is dangling a carrot in the face of Western media, but what people forget is the CCP isn't the one with the power. We are. No one believes Chinese state-run media. That's why China absolutely needs the Western media to give the regime legitimacy. If it weren't for foreign media writing stories on how great China's economy is doing, maybe no one would believe the official reports on how great the economy is doing. Of course, sometimes those pesky foreign media report that the economy isn't actually doing that great, not to mention that the rule of law and human rights are getting worse. So the regime tries to keep journalists in line by threatening them with expulsion if they veer into these dark waters. But if all foreign media collectively came together and decided that they'd had enough and won't play by Beijing's censorship rules, what are they going to do? Kick all foreign media out of China? That'd be a disaster. So much for their soft power PR campaign. It's kind of hard to be an admired global power if no one is admiring you. Authoritarian regimes fear the free press because it's just that powerful. And it seems that's something that's being forgotten in all this brouhaha. And also, guess where that NTD reporter was 2 days later after asking an embarrassing question to one of the most powerful men in New York? In the front row at another Bloomberg press conference. Mike Bloomberg didn't have his media pass rejected, the reporter didn't disappear in the middle of the night, and that's because a truly strong government doesn't collapse because there's a free press. Something to think about, Xi. Thanks for watching this episode of China Uncensored. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.